This is another classic matchup between the innovative Danish grandmaster Bent Larsen and the world champion at the time of this game, Boris Spassky. The year before this matchup, Spassky had beaten the great positional genius Tigran Petrosian to become world champion. Spassky retained the title for 3 years until he lost a famous match in 1972 against Bobby Fischer. Unfortunately, many people outside of the chess world only know Spassky for losing to Fischer, but Boris is an amazing character in his own right, very charismatic, debonair, and over-the-board his universal style gave him unusual flexibility to craft elaborate strategies against the psychologies of his opponents. Larsen begins this game with the unusual move b3, an opening that's been named after him, and it seems to violate basic principles right off the bat. Let's take a look. When your opponent makes a move like b3, an unprincipled decision in the opening, okay, he hasn't taken the center, so you with the black pieces can take the center. Spassky played e5. Bishop b2, attacking the pawn, knight c6. This is one of the reasons why there's no real reason to study the opening extensively, especially in the beginning of your chess play. Your opponent can always make a move which avoids your opening preparation, like b3. But if you know the chess principles, you can work your way through the situation. b3, e5, bishop b2, knight c6. Here Larsen played c4. Now we've transposed into the English. Knight f6, knight f3. Spassky played e4, taking that knight to d4, and then he played bishop c5, knight c6, dc6. This is a typical type of opening by Spassky. He's taken advantage of Larsen's strange play with b3. He's got a strong central pawn on e4, and he's played d takes c6, allowing his pawns to be doubled, but also, usually in chess you want to take towards the center with b takes c6, but d takes c6 is a specific type of decision. He's opened up the mobility of his queenside bishop. This bishop on c8 is going to be very strong, jumping out to squares like f5 or g4, and later if he plays a move like queen d7 and puts a rook on d8, that d2 pawn is going to come under attack. After d takes c6, Larsen played e3. Spassky played bishop f5. Now, d2 is a target. He doesn't want to allow d4, so bishop f5 loads up on that square. Remember, if white plays d4, black has the option of e takes d3 en passant. Now the bishop on f5 guards that square, so he's locking down a potential weakness on d2. Here, Larsen played queen c2, queen e7, bishop e2, castles. And here Larsen made the move f4. This is the moment that Spassky's alarm bell started to quiver. White's king is stuck in the center, and he's opened up a draft. Larsen figured he could use the pin to the e4 pawn to expand his pawn structure. But now Spassky is on the prowl. What would you play here? Spassky began with the move knight g4. One way to handle a king stuck in the center is to stop castling while building a central attack. If black had made a normal move, like rook e8, white could have castled, completed his development, and everything would be fine. After knight g4, the idea is that if castles, black has queen h4, threatening mate on h2, and suddenly white has a lot to deal with. After knight g4, white played g3, stopping the queen from jumping into h4. And now, Spassky jumped all over Larsen's position. You see, this is what I'm talking about when I say presence in the moment. The game was normal. It was evolving. f4 was a strange decision that immediately Spassky saw weaknesses. He jumped into knight g4, aiming for the h4 square. Now after g3, Spassky came up with another move, aiming for that g3 square. He played the very strong h5. And now, his idea is to play h4 and undermine the kingside position more, but Larsen seems to stop it with the move h3. This is the critical position of the game. Black to move. What should you do? Well, the normal move would be to go back, knight f6. But then white can just play knight c3, followed by castling queenside, and everything is perfectly fine. This is the kind of position where you have to have incredible presence. You have to notice every little wrinkle in the way your opponent is playing. Here, Spassky's intuition was telling him that Larsen had made a mistake. You're not going to just look and see the move that Spassky played here. What you're going to do is have a sense that there's something in the position for black, then you're going to start to search. And as you search, you'll go deeper and deeper, explore the nuances, and ultimately find the right move. That's the way you find this kind of decision. So now, you know there's something here for black. You know there's something unusual, because I've told you. Your chess intuition might inform you in a chess game. Over time, when you play chess more and more, when you study the principles, you'll be alerted to this kind of moment by this tingling you feel inside. Right now, black to play. What should you do? Spassky played the very strong move, h4. A sacrifice, based on the fact that white's king is stuck in the middle of the board, and he's opening up the king side by force. You see the idea? Well, first of all, if g takes h4, obviously queen takes h4 check will win the game. Black has jumped in. There's nothing for white to do. If he goes to f1, queen f2 will be mate. And if he goes to d1, knight f2 check, wins a rook. And it won't stop there. Obviously, the critical element of h4 is what happens if he takes the knight. H takes g4. That's what Larsen did. Now, what was Spassky's idea? H takes g3. So here, Larsen played rook g1. You see what would have happened after rook takes h8, rook takes h8, g takes f5? Good. Here, rook h1 check. The only legal move is bishop f1. And next is g2. Attacking that bishop, of course, the bishop is pinned to the king by the black rook on h1. Next move is going to be g takes f1, make a queen, and win the game. So he can't take our bishop on f5. And if white instead plays the move bishop to f1, there are actually a bunch of ways for black to win this position. The one I like best is queen h4, threatening g2 check, and after bishop g2, you can play the beautiful move queen h1 check. Sacrificing the queen after bishop takes h1, rook takes h1, king e2. You see the best move? Very good. Mate in 1 for black, bishop takes g4, checkmate. So Larsen couldn't take on h8, he needs that rook for the defense. And he realized that, he played the move rook g1. Now, you will not believe Spassky's next move. Every attacking idea here is unusual and incredibly powerful. Black to move. The key to this attack is that white's king is stuck in the middle of the board. If white gets 2 free moves, for example knight c3 and castle queenside, everything changes. So here black has to keep on forcing the issue. Obviously he had to see this move before he sacrificed the material. Black to move. Do you see it? This unusual pawn on g3 really changes the dynamic. It makes all of the attacking ideas kind of counterintuitive. Spassky's move was rook to h1. A rook sacrifice. We've already given up a piece. Now we give up the rook. Obviously, white has to take it. Rook takes h1. And now, for black. Do you see his idea? Good. g2. Pushing that pawn. Do you see how Spassky is opening up the diagonal to bring his queen into the attack with check? Here, white only has 2 possibilities. Rook g1 and rook f1. Notice once again how the queen on c2 is locked out of the defense. The king on e1 is stuck there. There's nothing he can do. And also notice how after rook g1, Spassky's move that's coming, I'm sure you see it now, queen h4 check, is based on the weakness which triggered his innovative move. It was f4 that white played that made Spassky find knight g4 and then this incredible piece sacrifice with h5, h4, h takes g3. It all started with the move f4 and the wonderful entry move queen h4 check takes direct advantage of f4. King d1 is the only move for white here, And now Spassky's idea, queen h1. Attacking that rook. Obviously, if Larsen takes it, then g takes h1. So after queen h1, the only thing for white to do is to make some space for the king to run to, a move like queen c3. And then after queen takes g1 check, king c2, queen f2, knight a3 tries to stop another queen from coming into the board, opening up the rook's defense of the g1 square. But here, no problem. You can just take the bishop on e2. This pawn on g2 is deadly, and after g takes f5, think about a bunch of the themes we've been working on so far in this course. Removing the defender, blocking the opponent's defenses. Here, the white queen is needed to defend the d2 and d3 squares. The white rook on a1 is needed to defend the g1 square. So if we can force the white king to the back rank, then we can make a queen with check and we'll have two queens. If we can force the white queen off of the defense of, for example, the d3 square, then we can play queen d3 check, forcing the white king back. Those are the elements alive in this position. With that said, black to move, what would you do? Very good. Bishop b4. Very strong. Attacking the white queen. The queen has to go somewhere, otherwise, if we win the queen, we're up a queen and we win the game. He has to move. If he plays queen takes b4 now, queen d3 check, forcing the white king back to the back rank. Then you make a queen, or a rook for that matter, and it's checkmate. This is a classic example of removing the defender. Notice, of course, if he goes to g7, you can still play queen d3 check, or you can play queen takes d2 check. Okay, so we see that if rook g1, then queen h4 check, followed by queen h1, would win the game. Seeing that, Larsen played the move rook to f1, keeping the rook on a square where it's defended. Of course, he's hoping that Spassky would take it, g takes f1, just winning a rook but giving up the queening possibility. Now, black to play. What do you do? Right, bring the queen into the game. Queen h4 check, king d1. Now is the moment. G takes f1 check, bishop takes f1, and now, bring another piece into the attack. Excellent. Bishop takes g4 check. What happens if white blocks with bishop e2? Do you see mate in 1? Very good. Queen h1 is checkmate. And if he goes to c1, what do you do now? Enter the position. Excellent. Queen e1 check. The only move for white is queen d1. And now, cap it off with the mate. Queen takes d1, checkmate. Excellent. So in fact, after g takes f1, Larsen resigned the game. Always be on the lookout for unusual ways to exploit an opponent's mistake. Once again, this game underscores the huge importance of learning chess principles. Becoming a stronger chess player is all about improving your chess intuition. You learn more and more principles and get better and better at combining them in your mind when evaluating a certain position or a move of your opponent. Eventually, you won't think about the principles, but you'll live by them. You'll feel them. I call this the study of numbers to leave numbers, and it's a critical method of learning that I've used in both chess and in the martial arts. Once you've internalized a foundational arsenal of principles, if you are present in the moment, you'll just know something is off when your opponent makes a bad move. It'll be in your hands, your skin. You'll smell it. Something is here, I just have to find it. That's how Spassky found the unusual refutation to Larsen's f4. Something felt wrong about the move, and so Spassky started searching.